first-round series is now tied at a game apiece. The next two games are at the Intuit Dome in Inglewood. Game 3 is Thursday night. A very important game for the Lakers tonight in their first-round series against Minnesota. The Lakers are down 0-1. Keep your eyes on the production of Rui Hachimura, Dorian Finney-Smith, Jared Vanderbilt, and Gabe Vincent. The four of them combined to make only 6 of 20 shots in Game 1 and had no free throw attempts. LeBron, Luka Doncic, and Austin Reeves are going to need a lot more help tonight to avoid going down 0-2. Tip-off time tonight is 7 on TNT. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
When the flames subside, who ensures that the stories endure? At KBLA Talk 1580, we're committed to preserving the voices that shape our community. We know people have short memories, and as long as this Black Talk radio station is on the air, we will not let Altadena be forgotten. We are honored to announce that the Altadena Historical Society will officially archive our recent town hall, alongside every episode of Conversation Live, Altadena Rising with James Farr. This is the show of record, the definitive source for tracking Altadena's roots, resilience, recovery, and reunion. These stories will now live on for students, scholars, researchers, and journalists seeking truth and legacy in the months and years to come. Because history isn't just made, it's honored, it's recorded, and it's passed forward. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavisSmileyShow.com. That's thetavisSmileyShow.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. But before we get to the rundown for today's program, first this. Out of respect for the Pope's passing yesterday, we opted not to focus on yesterday's anniversary of Prince's death. Almost a decade ago now, believe it or not. But trust and believe, I love and miss him too much to have forgotten it. So here now, one of his final appearances on my television show, singing rather appropriately a track called Reflection. To close out the show tonight, here's Prince and the very talented Wendy Melvoin performing Reflection.
2 sevens together like time indefinite. Try to catch the glass before it falls. Without a frown, can you turn up the stereo? I wanna play this old song. It's about love. Can I do that? Did we remember to water the plants today? I forgot to look up at the moon because I was too busy. Yes, I was too busy looking at you, oh babe. Still, it's nice to know that when bodies wear out, we can get another. What does that one thing have to do with the other one? I don't know. I was just thinking about my mother. You know what? Turn the stereo back down. Ain't nothing worse than a one-night love song. Do you like my hair this way? Remember all the way back in the day when we would compare whose afro was the roundest? Mirror tiles above the bed, fishing nets and posters all over the walls. Oh yeah. Sometimes I just wanna go out, you know what I mean, play my guitar, just watch all the cars go by.
I miss him terribly. Interestingly, yesterday was also the anniversary of the passing of Irene Bias West, the mother of Dr. Cornell West, who always treated me like her third son. And today is the 1-year anniversary of the death of my hero, my father, Emory G. Smiley Sr. It's all too much. I almost took off today, but instead, like my dad, I showed up. That's what he did. My dad always showed up. I'll spend the rest of my life just trying to be half the man he was. And so before we commence our program today, here now a bit of the tribute to my father following his transition last year.
I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride to make it easier. Let the children's laughter remind us how we used to be.
As a child, my most precious memories with my father were watching Muhammad Ali's prize fights. My dad was a huge Ali fan. Who knew that decades later, I would call the champ a friend?
I'm the greatest thing that ever lived. I don't have a mark on my face, and I upset Sonny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I am the king of the world. Hold it. Hold it, you're not that great. I'm a bad man. Wait. I shook up the world.
Indeed, one year, I hosted a fundraising event in Atlanta for the Ali Center in Ali's hometown of Louisville, on whose board I sat. Everybody who was anybody showed up that night, including a bevy of former heavyweight champions. I had called my father and told him to go see this particular tailor who was going to make him a custom tuxedo to attend an upcoming event with me. My dad was a bit curious, but thankfully he did what I asked. I sent him a first-class ticket. He flew down to Atlanta, and when he walked into the VIP reception at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel and saw the champ standing there, he stared at me and he froze. I only saw my dad cry twice in his life. Once at the funeral of his father in Midway, Georgia, and the day he met Ali. As we moved from the VIP reception to the room where dinner was served, I switched the name placards on the table and sat my dad next to the champ. I sat on the opposite side of my father, and he and the champ talked all night long. Until the day he died, I always thanked Ali for being the Saul in our relationship. Life is short. Love is real. Forgive and live. From that day forward, I made it my business to always tell my father how much I loved him and how grateful I was for all the sacrifices he had made for our family. I told him how honored I was to be his number one. That's what he called me. He always called me number one.
Number one, how are you doing today? Hope you're fine. I'm doing pretty good myself. You get a chance, give me a holler, let me know. I need to talk to you for just a few minutes, and then we'll move on. All right, take care. Dad, love you. Bye-bye.
In truth, my dad was my number one. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to live up to the example he set. Honor, respect, integrity, gratitude. I now know that it's not always about being strong. I have learned that grief is a manifestation of love. When they lowered my dad into the ground, I wondered whether there was anything I had forgotten to tell him. A friend comforted me. Tavis, if you thought you told him, you probably did. And if you think you forgot to tell him something, your dad likely already knew.
Generous listening. Charitable listening. It's why everybody wants to talk to Tavis. The conversation continues when we come forward.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. Think about your mentors and idols, the people who inspire you the most. While it may look like they have all the answers, they don't. But they do know when to ask questions and seek the support they need. In a world that glorifies hyper-independence, it's easy to forget that we're all better with a support system. Therapy is a great way to find a consistent source of support in your life, so you can break free from the outdated belief that seeking help is a sign of weakness. BetterHelp has experienced therapists ready to help you with challenges ranging from anxiety and depression to relationships and stress. It's convenient, too. You can join a session with the click of a button, helping you fit therapy into your busy life. You can even send your therapist a message anytime something comes up. Build your support system with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/ABCRadio today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/ABCRadio.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Hey, this is Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, and for over 20 years, Parkside Economic Development Corporation has served Leimert Park and surrounding communities, empowering tomorrow's leaders and changing lives. Parkside EDC has awarded over $400,000 in college scholarships while sharing economic principles of the Big Five of money with students and their families. Parkside EDC partners with organizations like the Brotherhood Crusade to assure our youth have the financial acumen to succeed. Parkside EDC provides families and businesses with financial insights, offering free online, on-site, and on-air B-Warp presentations. The Black Wealth Attainment and Retention Programs helps our community acquire, sustain, and pass down legacy wealth. High school seniors can apply for this year's scholarship awards at parksideedc.org. Scholarships will be awarded at Parkside EDC's Gospel/Jazz Brunch on Sunday, April the 27th. For details, tickets, or donations, please visit parksideedc.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
That's not typically how we commence our show every day, but it's not every day that the Pope passes away on the same day that Prince made his transition, on the same day that Irene Bias West made her transition, and then the following day is the day that my father made his transition. As I said, it's a lot. It's all too much, but it's important, I think, that we remember those. We recall those who have impacted our lives in meaningful ways. And so I thank you again for your indulgence at the outset of this program. Now, to the rundown, as usual. In our second hour today, two conversations. Up first, a conversation about today's 55th annual celebration of Earth Day with Earth Day Network founder Kathleen Rogers on the B side of our two. A conversation with two-time Grammy-nominated poet, journalist, and filmmaker Kevin Powell about his new documentary, When We Free the World, a documentary about black manhood. In our third hour, two more conversations. Up first, I've often said that what happens in California politics casts either a long shadow or a long sunbeam across the nation. We will speak with Davon Love on the top side of our three about the newly formed Maryland State Reparations Commission and its plan to study appropriate benefits for those affected by historical inequality. And on the B side of our three, writer, comedian, and actor Dwayne Perkins joins us live in studio to talk about the new Apple TV Plus series, The Studio. We'll also talk about his reboot of the classic movie Clue and more, all that on the backside of our three. We commenced today's show, though, talking politics with author and Fordham University political science professor, Dr. Christina Greer. Dr. Greer, good to have you back. How are you?
It's always great to be with you, Tavis.
Thank you for your time. Glad I have you for the rest of this hour. Let me start with this. Of course, there is developing news and stories all day, every day, for the next number of weeks, in fact, about the passing of Pope Francis. One of the things I got to yesterday briefly, but want to get to a bit more with you. I know you teach at a Jesuit school. Francis appointed more than 20 cardinals from developing countries who will now elect the next pontiff. You have to be under 80 as a cardinal to vote in the first place. And there is great conversation. We had some of it yesterday on this program about whether or not the Catholic Church will continue down the progressive path that Francis was shepherding them down, or whether or not they'll use this moment to swing the church back to the right in the era of Trumpism, not just in this country, but indeed around the globe. But one can't lose sight of the fact, again, that he appointed more than 20 cardinals who are all voting from developing countries. I mean Rwanda and Congo and Myanmar and Mongolia and South Sudan that never previously had cardinals. Again, from yesterday's conversation, if you saw the movie Conclave, can't give the end away, you got to go see it. You'll be surprised at how that thing ended. Everybody was blown away by the way the film ended. So you see where I'm going, Dr. Greer. He's appointed a bunch of cardinals from different parts of the world. Does that mean anything? Might that mean anything?
Well, I think it definitely meant something during the time of Pope Francis. But Tavis, the way you lay out the question, I think it remains to be seen whether or not the church will continue on this path of inclusion, global inclusion, which a lot of Catholics, especially from the global south, have been yearning for, a more progressive inclusion that includes LGBTQ plus individuals, that includes divorced individuals, that includes people who want a woman to have autonomy and choice over her body, and more complicated questions that the Catholic Church has continued to grapple with, or will they roll back the way the United States is pushing so many nations across the globe to do so, to make it less inclusive on so many different policy levels? And so I don't know where the church will go, but I do hope that their course of inclusion that we've seen these past few years under this particular pope will continue, so it can bring more people into the doors of the church to feel welcome, no matter what lifestyle or geographic locale or choices they've made, or, quite frankly, how people are born and decide to live their lives.
I wonder if you think that long term, maybe not in this election, but long term, whether or not the growing number of Latin Americans in the church and Africans, black Africans in the church, will ultimately mean anything for how the church moves, how it shows up in the years to come.
Tavis, we used to think as political scientists that demographics were destiny, right? So as we become a lot more diverse, then we become a lot more progressive. We have not seen that. So what tends to happen, and I don't know if it'll happen in the church, but the way it happens in regular society is that once people get through a door, they are willing to shut that door, shut that window, lock it up, pull the ladder up, and they're in the in crowd and they don't want newcomers. And so I don't know if these new folks who've been included into the church will be inclusive and want to continue to bring in more folks, or if it will be one of those situations where they pull up the ladder and lean into a more conservative fashion. We see it in politics, and obviously the church in some ways is a microcosm of so many different political institutions that we see in our daily lives.
Yeah. I want to move toward in a moment here this brilliant piece that I saw you write for the New York Times. One of the best things I've seen written. Nicely done. The piece was called Black Americans Are Not Surprised. You can already figure out where she went in the piece if you didn't read it. But I want to spend some good time unpacking that Black Americans are not surprised. Put a pin in that for the moment. There's one other story I want to get to, and I don't know, where the truth lies with regard to this story, but it is fascinating and it is developing. So Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, we raised this issue again on yesterday's program, is in hot water once again for sharing information with people who had no business receiving it, including his wife and his brother, et cetera, and his publicist, persons who were in a signal chat with him as we were bombing innocent people and civilians. But he was in this chat on Signal, again with his wife, brother, and others who had no business receiving that kind of intel from anybody at the Defense Department, let alone the Defense Secretary. And so Donald Trump has said out of one side of his mouth that it's much ado about nothing. It's a waste of time to talk about it. On the other hand, there are stories today, including in reputable places like NPR, sources telling media outlets that the White House is, in fact, looking to replace Pete Hegseth as defense secretary. I've said more times than I can count, he had no business being there in the first place. He's woefully unqualified to be defense secretary. But Donald Trump, it seems to me, even Donald Trump can only for so long continue to defend when you keep stepping into it. So again, I don't know where the truth lies, whether Donald Trump is being honest when he says it's much ado about nothing, or whether or not the other story is breaking today that they are quietly looking to replace him is where the truth is. I don't know. But what do you make of the story writ large?
Well, first of all, Tavis, the march of the incompetent folks in this particular administration is just astounding. I mean, you're replacing 4- and 5-star generals who happen to be of color and black specifically, purely because the president just has decided that they aren't qualified just based on the color of their skin, and putting in woefully incompetent people whose own family members say that they are not up for the task. I mean, Tavis, think of it this way. If you and I were on a text chain and you add in your producer, and I don't know who your producer is, and I see a strange number on our text chain, I'm not saying anything. I'm not answering because I don't know the number. The fact that there's so many people on these text chains who should not be, first of all, on a text chain.
Yeah.
When we are talking about, as you said, bombing innocent civilians in some instances, just lets us know the level at which we're operating, which, is frightening, especially since we have so many millions of American service members who are putting their lives on the line in the name of this nation. And he is, in many ways, one of the main leaders. So I don't know if at some point, even this administration will say enough is enough and too much is too much with the level of incompetence from Pete Hegseth and, obviously the calls for his recreational alcohol usage, etc., that came up during his confirmation hearings, or if they, will double down as we've seen them do before, which is, what you're seeing is not what you're seeing, right? Well, they'll just continue to deny and defend and defend. And so sadly, the people who were affected are service members who are putting their lives on the line for this country, and innocent civilians in other countries who have to deal with someone who, quite honestly, as my grandfather would say, is a lost ball in high weeds. He is woefully not up for the job.
I like that. A lost ball in high weeds. I'm going to steal your grandfather's line. I like that one. A lost ball in high weeds. As you were talking about using that metaphor of you and I being on a text thread, and you recognizing a number that didn't seem familiar, and you ain't gonna say nothing. I resonate with that. It made me think about a funny story I heard just a few days ago. On this program, a week or two ago, we celebrated the 35th anniversary of In Living Color. Of course, In Living Color is brought to us by Keenan Ivory Wayans and the Wayans family. 35 years years ago, believe it or not. And I think it was Marlon was saying the other day that they do these regular family chats like every Sunday, I think. So every week, the Wayans family, the entire family gets on the phone, and they all talk about whatever they need to talk about. And it turns out that Keenan had changed his phone number, and nobody knew it. But whoever got that phone number just dialed into the chat. Dialed into the chat. They are not a member of the Wayans family, and everybody eventually figured out there's somebody on this call.
Right. Who should not be here.
Who should not be here. And the person just rolled along like they were part of the Wayans family. Mm-hmm. And they had to out this Negro and get him off the line. But it's a funny story. But if the Wayans can figure out that Keenan was not on the call and somebody who shouldn't have been was in the call, how could the Defense Department not figure that out, Christina?
Exactly. And, first of all, shout out to the Wayans family for bringing us, joy and entertainment for several decades. I mean, I said it over a decade ago. I cannot wait for Marlon Wayans to get an Oscar, and I know that it is in his future. I mean, he's a phenomenal dramatic actor, which always just makes me so happy. But to that point exactly, Tavis, I mean, the sheer level of incompetence that we're seeing coming out of Washington, D.C. right now, bags getting stolen with badges and allegedly $3,000 inside, going across the ocean to a horrendous prison wearing a Rolex. I mean, the level of cruelty and incompetence is unmatched in modern day history, and it's frightening to see what our country is becoming in front of our very eyes. And as I wrote in the piece, but a lot of Black people said it was going, we know the score, and we tried to warn folks time and time again.
Yep. I'm glad you raised that. Let me just ask a quick question about that in the 90 seconds I have left here. How does the secretary, let me just back up. This is not just a cabinet secretary. This is the cabinet secretary, in charge of Homeland Security. You are the Homeland Security Secretary, and your purse with your passport and other stuff gets stolen. Like, how does that happen?
I don't know. I just, again.
And she travels with security.
Right. But I mean, I think the phrase that pays is incompetence. Yeah. I mean, from the top to the tippy top to the roots. We have folks who are in government, or in this administration, I should say. We still have so many strong people in government who are fighting against this, but we just have far too many people in this administration who are in such depths that they fail to understand. Yeah. And here we are, we have to laugh to keep from wailing, to see just how far they will take us into the abyss.
Yeah, incompetence is the best word I can think of, and Christina's already used it a few times. But when the defense secretary and his team don't know who's on a call that shouldn't be on the call, and they invited the person to the call, and then your Secretary of Homeland Security, with security all around her, gets her purse stolen at a restaurant with her passport and other ID, and et cetera, et cetera. If she ain't safe, we ain't safe. So I'll leave it there. When we come forward, as I said, I want to spend some time unpacking this provocative piece that Professor Greer wrote for the New York Times called "Black Americans Are Not Surprised." You're listening to Christina Greer, and I'm glad about it on Tavis Smiley.
Why does Tavis say when we come forward?
Because he's not going back.
And you don't have to go back either. Forward ever, backward never. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. Harvard University is suing the Trump administration to block funding freezes aimed at controlling academic decisions. The administration plans to pull $1 billion more in funding, and the IRS is moving to revoke Harvard's tax-exempt status. Patrick Cruces, who killed nearly 24 people in a racist attack at an El Paso, Texas Walmart, agreed to a life sentence plea deal. The decision not to seek the death penalty was made after consulting victims' families. Cruces may be moved from a federal supermax prison. The faithful are still gathering in Vatican City following the death of Pope Francis. The Vatican says Francis died at the age of 88 after a stroke. People can pay their respects within the 9-day mourning period at St. Peter's Square. No date for the funeral has yet been set. And today is Earth Day, celebrating the birth of the environmental movement. Events worldwide aim to inspire sustainable living through recycling, reducing energy use, and saving water. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
Every day, a child in poverty waits for a sponsor is another day of hopelessness. There are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year. End their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Just text the word radio to 83393.
Is this the touchdown? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man.
When Clippers star Kawhi Leonard is healthy, there is no question that he's one of the premier players in the NBA. He proved it last night. Kawhi scored 11 of his season-high 39 points in the fourth quarter to spark the Clippers to a 105-102 win at Denver. The best-of-7 first-round series is now tied at a game apiece. The next two games are at the Intuit Dome in Inglewood. Game 3 is Thursday night. A very important game for the Lakers tonight in their first-round series against Minnesota. The Lakers are down 0-1. Keep your eyes on the production of Rui Hachimura, Dorian Finney-Smith, Jared Vanderbilt, and Gabe Vincent. The four of them combined to make only 6 of 20 shots in Game 1 and had no free throw attempts. LeBron, Luka Doncic, and Austin Reeves are going to need a lot more help tonight to avoid going down 0-2. Tip-off time tonight is 7 on TNT. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. At Exquisite Family Mortuary, we know how overwhelming it can be planning a meaningful farewell for your loved one. Secure your peace of mind by calling Charlotte White at 323-577-5562. That's Charlotte White at 323-577-5562. From traditional funeral services to memorials to direct cremation, pre-needs, and more. Call Charlotte White at Exquisite Family Mortuary for Southern hospitality in Southern California. That's Charlotte White at 323-577-5562. Exquisite Family Mortuary is located nearby in Inglewood, California. Exquisite Family Mortuary, where your loved one becomes our loved one.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish. Minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues? Who are you? Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Listen up, Gen Xers. Elizabeth Banks here. The recommended age for pneumococcal pneumonia vaccination has been lowered to 50 and older, even if you're healthy. It's up to us to lead the way. We've done this before. Music videos, fanny packs, even the World Wide Web. So let's do it again and get vaccinated. We're at over 6 times greater risk for pneumococcal pneumonia compared to adults under 50. Gen X, this is our shot. Visit vaxassist.com to schedule. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in.
But we're okay with that.
You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
You are indeed with Fordham University political science professor, Dr. Christina Greer, who I'm honored to have on this program in this first hour. So this piece, Black Americans Are Not Surprised, got my attention. And as I said, one of the best pieces I've read in a long time, certainly in this particular frame. So I've got some time here. Let's unpack this piece for those who didn't get a chance to read it, Professor Greer.
So, Tavis, it was something that I'd been thinking about for quite some time, and clearly a lot of other Black folks had, which was the moment we're in is frightening and it's shocking and, it's a colossal failure on so many levels. But a lot of Black folks are like, it doesn't seem brand new, especially those of us who, of a certain age and had grandparents or parents even who told us about the ways that, they could just be fired on the spot just because of race and racism, right? Watching Good Times, James Evans always talking about last hired, first fired. We know our grandparents, especially if you had folks in the Deep South, they all had stories about someone who would just disappear in the middle of the night, and some people just disappearing in the middle of the day by vigilantes or even by the state. We had folks who just lived in a constant state of fear. We still have Black communities that live in a constant state of fear from either, police and policing or even vigilantes, depending on where certain Black people live. So this particular moment where a lot of good-meaning liberals are clutching their pearls and scratching their heads, like, how could this be happening? This isn't the country, we know. But so many Black folks have said, yes, it is the country we know. It absolutely is the country we know. And this is the country we told you we could easily return to if we weren't serious about November 5th, 2024, and making sure a second term of Donald Trump didn't happen, because we knew that the level of cruelty and incompetence, as promised in Project 2025, as promised by Donald Trump every day on the campaign trail, as promised by his surrogates, would actually be a real possibility and probability. And so this hand-wringing that we see from far too many people now is something that a lot of Black folks know that this country is capable of because we've heard the stories and we've seen it with our own eyes.
Yeah. I mentioned Cornel West earlier, the transition date of his precious mother yesterday, on the same day as the Pope, on the same day as Prince. Again, there's a lot going on there. But I raised that only because Cornel West gave a speech once about what he called the niggerization of America. And his point, essentially, Christina Greer, was that in so many ways, on 9/11 and even today, in real time, folk who don't look like us are starting to understand what it feels like to be in an ominous moment like this. What's the takeaway to your mind for others? Again, your piece is called Black Americans Are Not Surprised. Other folk are waking up and finding out, or they waking up and figuring it out. What's your sense of what they are awaking to in this, again, ominous moment that we've been used to for time eternal?
Right. Well, what I think Black people understand, and I mentioned Michael Dawson, who's a great political scientist, and he talked about linked fate, and a lot of Black people understand that what happens to you individually also happens to the group. Right? What happens to us as Black people can also happen to others. And so this is why when there's a failure of a Black celebrity, we still feel it because we still feel the brunt and the burden of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? We oftentimes feel the backlash of it. When a politician goes down, we know that it makes it harder for any black politician, in subsequent elections to be successful, if there's some sort of scandal or impropriety. Whereas white Americans tend not to think in those same terms because they're not penalized in the same way. But I think, a lot of what I was asking. First of all, I wrote this piece for Black people. Other people who read it, great. But this is basically trying to give voice to a lot of things that Black folks have been feeling, but we just didn't, have the succinct kind of compilation. But for white folks and non-Black people who have read it, it's also just recognizing it's like, so you were okay for all of this to happen to other people?
Mm-hmm.
You just didn't think it would happen to you?
Mm-hmm.
Because oftentimes, I vote against my own interests. I don't have kids in public school. I never went to public school, but I vote to fund public schools because I care about an educated populace, right? I pay taxes to pay for other people to have a better life. I'm not on, welfare or living in Section 8, but I want other people, especially in rural white communities, to actually have, a leg up in this country, not just, me and people in my circumstance. So recognizing that it's the collective, and a lot of people don't go to the ballot box. They don't think that way. They don't vote that way. And Black folks, by and large, we always, as I say, we're the canaries in the mine. We're the ones who go and say, hey, there's danger afoot. Not necessarily for me, but for you. And so I'm asking this question, if all the things that were promised by Donald Trump in the entirety of 2024 about deporting folks and the level of swift cruelty that was promised, why were you okay with that? And now that the chicken has come home to roost, there's, just I cannot believe it. I can't imagine. But yes, it's happening to you, but why were you okay that it was going to happen to someone else? Um, and so I think that's the piece where until people wake up and recognize that we are inextricably linked, that we recognize that Black history is American history. And if you don't understand Black history, you fundamentally don't understand this country. And you can't understand that the dangers that lie ahead in this country if you don't understand what's happened to Black folks on this soil. It's not us being histrionic. It's not us living in the past. I nicely reminded my students that the Voting Rights Act, when Black women officially were allowed to vote, is 1965. I was born in 1978. My mom was born in 1948, right? And so this isn't Harriet Tubman days. This is Christina Greer days, right? And so we're just now getting these rights and this equity and this inclusion that we can see is so easily rolled back if we are not careful and vigilant about making sure it stays.
To your point about these dangers that lie ahead, I've been thinking a lot lately about the Reagan era. And for those who were around and remember the Reagan era, there was such a huge setback for Black people in so many ways. And none of us should be surprised by that. I have to always remind people that when Ronald Reagan announced he was running for president, he left California, where he'd been governor. As you know, you're a political science professor, you know this stuff. He left California and traveled to Mississippi, specifically
Philadelphia, Mississippi.
There you go. Specifically, that's why I love smart people. He traveled to Philadelphia, Mississippi, a place where they happened to kill. Give it to me, Dr. Greer.
The three civil rights workers, Goodman, Schwerner, and Cheney.
That's right. So Goodman, Schwerner, and Cheney are murdered in Philadelphia. Why does Ronald Reagan leave California and go all the way to Mississippi, a place he'd never been, in Philadelphia, to announce that he's running for president? I got a smart audience. I ain't got to unpack that for y'all. If that wasn't a statement at the very outset for the kind of president he would be if elected, then I don't know what other message, could have been clearer, right? So he makes that announcement. He goes on to win the first term. Of course, we all know he gets reelected. And there's so much, hell to pay for Black people, courtesy of Ronald Reagan and that particular era. I could argue, and the data I think is incontrovertible, that in some ways we're still trying to rebound from the damage done to Black communities during the era of Ronald Reagan. Now, why do I raise that? Because when we come forward, I want to ask Professor Christina Greer about, again, those dangers that lie ahead and how much worse off she feels that Black folk, Black America might be after 2 terms of Trump. Of course, there was a Biden term in the middle of that, but Trump is going full force. as fast as he can, overturning and undoing and unhinging, etc., etc. And I'm always concerned, and certainly these days, thinking about how much damage will be done by Trump as compared to the damage done by Reagan and the price that black people will pay for all of that. We'll unpack all of that when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on! Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop, opt out. Consult a doctor prior to use.
Wow, you look amazing. What have you been doing?
I'm sure you've heard of Ozempic, Wegovy, and the other GLP-1 medications, right? Well, I found this great company called Zelty. If you qualify, their providers can prescribe medications like Ozempic and Wegovy and other GLP-1 medications that are 80 to 90% less expensive, all 100% online.
I can get GLP-1 medications for 80 to 90% less and do it all online? No doctor's office or pharmacy?
Yes, Zelty can provide semaglutide or tirzepatide, the active ingredients in Ozempic and other expensive GLP-1s, but for 80 to 90% less and shipped directly to your door.
How do I get started with Zelty?
Just send them a text.
Text SKINNY to 323232 to get started today with Zelty. Get the same active ingredients in Wegovy or Ozempic, but for 80 to 90% less and 100% online. Don't wait. Text SKINNY to 323232 right now for a link to your exclusive offer. Text SKINNY to 323232. That's SKINNY to 323232. SKINNY to 323232.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month. If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
If you missed our KBLA Talk 1580 Town Hall, the Altadena Eden Fire, 100 Days and Counting, you missed an evening of reverence, reflection, and reality.
You gotta live in the reality because this is it. Every day, you wake up, is this my life? Don't stay in denial because yes it is. Don't stay in bargaining where you're praying for a miracle and if it wouldn't have happened, then this is what I would have done. It did.
Our panel participants kept it real. Really real.
I think, number one, it's amazing to me how we ignore systemic racism in our community, and as a people, we've apologized for so much, but when will we stop apologizing for what we have paid for? Because the truth of the matter is we paid for this.
You can always count on KBLA Talk 1580 to give it to you straight, no chaser. When you love folk, you tell them the truth. Seeking the truth, speaking the truth. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we don't black down. Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Professor Christina Greer at Fordham University, political science professor there. Her piece is called Black Americans Are Not Surprised. I recommend you find it at the New York Times. It was a guest essay, again, powerful piece of writing here. And I want to quote from it. I'm going to edit this, but you wrote it, so you know what I'm talking about here. I'm going to weave a couple pieces together here. I quote from her piece, Black Americans Are Not Surprised. This nation went backward before. Reconstruction lasted 12 years. Then its advances were not only abandoned, but also mostly undone. We must be honest about that. American democracy must be tended to with eyes open to the future and lessons learned from the past. My own editing on the fly there. But those are the words, some of the words in Dr. Greer's piece for the New York Times, once again, called Black Americans Are Not Surprised. You heard me mention a moment ago the Reagan era. I recall it well, and I got that funny feeling in my gut that black folk going to lose a whole lot of ground in this era as we did then. What say you, Professor Greer?
Yes, I mean, Tavis, I think we're still unpacking the damage of the Reagan
Oh,
era.
yeah.
I don't know if we'll fully understand, truthfully, just how much damage he did to Black communities, large and small, across all 50 states, to be quite honest. Because, we've got historic Black communities in Alaska who were affected by the Reagan era. This is also, I think, Reagan, 2, 3, 4, 5.0 pulled together. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's a particular disdain this administration has for people of color writ large, but Black people in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And so, obviously it started with the promise of firing federal workers, which, has affected non-Black people exponentially. But, we know the president essentially said you've got all these lazy Black women collecting government checks, right? We're revisiting this idea of a welfare queen.
That's right.
We know that now the public schools are majority kids of color. The defunding of the Department of Education and public schools across the country is happening. We know that he has no care in the world for public housing. And obviously, he always puts a Black person in charge because obviously, when you think of the housing projects, he only thinks of Black people. That's why Ben Carson, instead of being Health and Human Services, was in charge of HUD, right? And again,
Although Trump lives in public housing, but I digress.
it always has, living off the dole of the government.
Yeah.
And so his vision of Black people, especially of cities. I mean, I think, we're going to see the defunding of cities in a massive scale, the way we saw in the 80s. A lot of cities rely on obviously state funding, but federal funding as
That's right.
well for these hybrid projects that we have, whether it's roads, whether it's transportation, whether it's public housing, where a disproportionate number of Black people will be affected. Jobs programs, the late great Marion Barry understood that if you keep young people employed, you will have low stakes way of decreasing crime in cities and creating robust communities.
Mm-hmm.
All those programs, summer programs to keep kids off the street and keep them busy and active, we know will affect Black communities. We also know, just the health effects, the stress, we know affects Black people differently because of the racism that we experience in micro and macro ways in
Yeah.
every single facet of our lives on a daily basis, but also canceling hospitals and closing hospitals in Black communities, making sure that, research for particular types of diseases and cancers that disproportionately affect Black people. All of that is off the table.
Sure.
So, I mean, the list goes on, and it's deliberate. And it's been part of a much longer and larger conversation, again, laid out very clearly and promised in Project 2025.
Yeah.
The few little sprinklings here and there of, oh, I like HBCUs, but really doing nothing more than what has been done in the past. And we know that pretty soon they will be in his crosshairs. Nonprofits that obviously support communities, large and small. I mean, all of these things
Sure.
will be affected because you've got to pay for your billionaire tax cuts somehow. And so obviously it'll be on the backs of the masses.
Point well taken. I hadn't heard the name Marion Barry mentioned in a while, but we are heard right now on WOL in D.C. Pleased to be heard on that grand heritage station. Kathy Hughes, love her dearly. And when I think of your comment about Marion Barry, there ain't a Black person there's not a Black Washingtonian anywhere of a certain age who did not have a summer job when Marion Barry was mayor. And if you talk to him, they'll remind you of all the summer jobs they had during the Marion Barry administration. He made sure those young folk had jobs. And so you said that and reminded me of that moment. And so I'm glad you mentioned that. When we come forward in our remaining moments with Professor Greer, her piece again is titled, Black Americans Are Not Surprised. So we're not surprised, but what should we be in this moment? That's the exit question. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
As a fan, you know all the important sports cliches. And when you save money by bundling your home and auto with Progressive, you can get out there and give it 110%, even though that's mathematically impossible. And remember, failure is not an option. Well, it's always an option, just not a good one. But you're not worried because you've got ice in your veins. You're on fire. How can both of those things be true at the same time? Well, that's between you and your doctor. So get out there and leave it all on the field. Leave what? Who cares? Just leave it and save with a bundle from Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers. Not available in all states or situations.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. BenefitsCheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
I can't believe how spotless my floors look after using the Swiffer Power Mop. No more dragging around a heavy mop and messy bucket. Now I get the same deep clean without all the work. Thanks to the powerful solution and scrubbing pad of the Swiffer Power Mop, dirt and grime don't stand a chance, and I don't break a sweat. Mic drop. Mop drop.
Swiffer Power Mop. Swiffer Power Mop.
A smarter way to mop. Try it or your money back.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in, but we're okay with that. You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
You are indeed. I got 3 minutes left, a little less than 3 minutes, with Christina Greer, professor of political science at Fordham. So here's the extra question. Black Americans are not surprised by anything we see happening right now, but what should we be in this peculiar American moment?
I think we should be level-headed. You know, for those of us who aren't directly affected by what is going on right now, for those of us who are lucky enough to still have our jobs, or who aren't, scared about immigration raids and family and loved ones disappearing, I think this is the time that we should be organizing, donating to causes and individuals who are doing the work on the ground, and making sure that we don't become Chicken Littles or paralyzed by what's happening, and really just make sure that we stay calm so that we can actually fight this tide that has been promised, and it is now here.
Yeah, I love the way you started this piece, quoting your grandmother. The only time you should be surprised is when you're surprised.
She had some great ones. She really did.
Yeah, there's nothing in this moment that should surprise any of us. And so, again, I love that quote. The only time you should be surprised is when you're surprised. I got 60 seconds here right quick. What do you think your grandmother Lillian would make of this particular moment, given all that she witnessed and saw during her tenure?
Well, she grew up in the Deep South in Yulee, Florida, which is right across the Georgia border. So that's the Deep South.
Sure.
And had some of ninth grade education. She was a nurse's aide because she wasn't allowed to become a nurse. She worked on labor and delivery, and my sister is a Harvard-trained doctor who's an OBGYN and head of the OBGYN department at Penn. So, things happen in generations, but she fundamentally understood politics and this nation and the capacity of white folk, as she would call them, the good and the bad. And she saw both sides. And so I think she would say, evaluate expeditiously, but still always stay close to family and community to make sure we understand what we need so that we can act accordingly.
Yeah, I'm fascinated how this hour just kind of bookends. I started this hour in tribute to my father, who I lost 1 year ago today. I'm trying to.
Sorry, sending you
I appreciate
love
that.
and energy.
Appreciate that. Just trying to continue that legacy. And here you are talking about your grandmother Lillian. And I can only imagine how proud she must be of her grandbabies.
Oh, indeed.
One's a doctor, one's a professor, One's an MD, one's a PhD. It's a beautiful thing. What a difference a generation or two can make, right?
Isn't that the case?
I love it. I love stories.
And listen, I'd be out there picking okra, feeding hogs, just like everybody else, fancy degrees or not.
No, I love it. I love the trajectory in Black America when we do what we need to do and handle our business. Professor Greer, good to have you on. We'll do it again. All the best to you.
All the best to you too, Tavis.
Thank you for your time. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm suing the Trump administration to block funding freezes aimed at controlling academic decisions. The administration plans to pull $1 billion more in funding, and the IRS is moving